is part 5 of Understanding Islam, Unpacking the Shahada. And I'm going to speak about ways in which meaning can be lost through the process of translation. It can be very important in creating misunderstandings and misinformation about Islam. It's a further reflection on the difficulty of accessing the truth about Islam on some subjects. There is a verse in the Quran, Surah 4:35, which says that a husband may beat his wife as a punishment. He has other options as well, but the final outcome is to use force. And this is in fact part of Sharia law, that a husband has a right to beat his wife, and it causes real difficulties. Muslim communities in Australia have had to deal with the issue of domestic violence. In fact, it's such a great and significant criticism of Islam that the International Fiqh Academy, which is a group of supreme jurists from throughout the world, set up by the Organisation for Islamic Cooperation, put out a fatwa a few years ago on domestic violence, as they called it. And that fatwa upheld the right of a husband to use force against his wife, but they said that it should be very gentle use of force. Now, what's interesting about this passage is that some translations translate Surah 4:34 as chastise or beat lightly. It may be lightly in brackets, which is added in by the translator. Chastise is really quite a clever word to use because it has two meanings in English. One is to verbally dress someone down, you know, you whatever, and the other is to hit them, to smack them or beat them. So by using an English word that's ambiguous, the English reader might not know that the Arabic word is just the basic word for beat. It's not, you know, to use a word as complex as chastise is quite a complex thing, because in Arabic it just means hit your wife. The older translation by a convert from England, he came to Islam in the late 19th century, he just translated this as scourge your wife, which means to whip her. So it gives you a sense of the range of translation. So that's an example of the difficulty that can happen with understanding Islamic texts. Another one is the passages in the Quran that say fight. Fight the people of the book, Surah 9:29. And Surah 2, verse 190, fight in the path of Allah, fi sabi Allah, those who fight you. Or Surah 2, 193, fight them until there's no more fitna, no more temptation, no more trouble for the Muslim community. Now, if you look at that from an English perspective, you won't know that that word for fight is derived from the word to kill. So qatilu is to fight, but qatala is to kill. And in Arabic, they look almost exactly the same. The fight version has an extra letter. And an Arabic speaker looks at those letters and sees, when they see the word fight, they see the word kill embedded in the fighting. And it's a form of the verb which implies a reciprocal killing. You kill me, and I kill you, and we're killing each other. That's sort of what the verb implies. It's a one against the other. But when you read the English, it seems much more innocuous, because in English, fight could be what children do in a playground. It could be some kind of verbal struggle or whatever. It's the normal word for what armies do in English is fighting. But in Arabic, the normal word for what armies do is killing. That's what armies do. They kill. They don't fight. And so that's a very significant difference. And sometimes I've heard Arabic-speaking Christians say, the Quran doesn't say what you think it means, because it actually means something else. Very difficult to translate it. Very difficult to say, kill the people of the book as they kill you or something. I mean, it's really hard to explain that idea of combative killing, which is what the word fight. There are other words for fight in Arabic which are more general and don't have this particular meaning, but this is the one that's used in the Quran. So where it says fight the people of the book, that means the intended outcome is they should be dead. In English, if you fight a battle, the intended outcome is not that the enemy should be dead, it's that you should win the battle and overpower them. So that's the difference as well. Female circumcision is a very interesting issue. Many people claim that it's a cultural practice, not a religious practice. And you'll hear that many times, even experts in the field in international women's rights. Many Muslims will say that, and I've seen that said over and over again. This is a passage from the Reliance of the Traveller, Undar Asalik, which is a Sharia manual. And it's the section E4.3, which talks about female circumcision. And it's translated by the editor, the translator, Nuhamim Keller, as follows. Circumcision is obligatory for both men and women. For men it consists of removing the prepuce for the penis, that is the foreskin, and for women removing the prepuce, the hood of the clitoris, not the clitoris itself as some mistakenly assert. Hanbalis hold that circumcision of women is not obligatory but sunnah, that is recommended, while Hanafis consider it a mere courtesy to the husband. So that's the translation of the Arabic. And in the book you've got the Arabic on one side and the translation on the other side. What does the Arabic actually say? It says, circumcision is obligatory for every male and female by cutting off the piece of skin on the glands of the penis, that is the foreskin, but circumcision of the female is by cutting out the clitoris. This is called khufad. So it's a bit of a difference, isn't it, the translation? And it certainly makes a difference to the girls, I can tell you that. So what do you make of this kind of translation practice? This translation is certified by Al-Azhar University, the premier Islamic university. He says in the front that it's not always an exact translation, it's an interpretation, but it creates problems because if you were to just look at the English, you'd get completely the wrong impression as to what the Arabic says. As it happens, the Shafi'i school is one of the schools, is the school in which circumcision of girls is obligatory, and that's why it's widely practiced in Southeast Asia and throughout Egypt. It's practiced amongst the Kurds in Iraq, who are Shafi'is, but not amongst the Arabs. There are parts of Saudi Arabia where it's practiced amongst those that follow Shafi'i Islam and not others. Actually, a very specific school makes it compulsory. The others, it's sort of recommended. So that's an example. And you can get a lot of confusion and misrepresentation, misunderstanding being built up about practices like this, and they're very important. I mean, millions of girls are affected by this. They die. People die from botched circumcisions, and it causes a lot of damage, and there's a lot of misogynistic kind of attitudes about women that are associated with this practice as well. Here's another example of a claim that's made, which is not true, but becomes part of the kind of commonly accepted wisdom about Islam. This is a widely distributed booklet promoting Islam called Basic Principles of Islam, and published in Abu Dhabi. And it says, no other book in the world can match the Quran. The astonishing fact about this book of Allah is that it has remained unchanged even to a dot over the last 1400 years. No variation of text can be found in it. You can check this for yourself by listening to the recitation of Muslims from different parts of the world. It's a very confident statement, and Muslims often use this as a stick to hit over the head of Christians. You know, you've got all your different translations, and there's different versions, and there's different manuscripts. Unlike us, our Quran is absolutely perfect. There's no variation whatsoever. In fact, official Islam acknowledges, Islamic scholars acknowledge that there are various they call them readings or different versions of the Quran that are officially accepted by Sunni Islam. There's 4 or 5 different versions of the Quran in print today in the Sunni Muslim world. And in fact, as you go back in time and you look at the early manuscripts, there's a lot of variations. Like there's variations on every page in the different manuscripts of the Quran. It's not a fixed text. This is just completely untrue, but it becomes part of folklore. It becomes part of what sort of every Muslim says and believes. And you could, unless you actually study those variants and look at them or have read someone who studied them, you might just accept this, and it could disadvantage you really in sharing your faith with Muslims, because they challenge you about the Bible and they make this claim about the Quran. It's not actually true at all. It's quite false. That's the end of that section. Just a short one.